Let me share with you some of the successes we've had with the Cash Flow is King process. So the first one is a $2 million business that we started working with about 18 months ago. And when we started working with them, their books were in chaos. They had a very complicated business, not because they were making it complicated. It literally has some interesting moving parts that nobody seemed to be able to fix. And so every month, this business owner did not know how much money was in the bank account and how much money was her cash flow versus going to pay the employees and future contractors for the work being done. So let me explain the business and let me share with you the result. So the business is not necessarily unique in this way, but it had 300 transactions per month, which is a high amount of transactions. So to reconcile those and make sure those are reconciled every month. Number two is 41 contractors were paid per month. Again, not necessarily crazy, but here's the difference. The contractors were not sending in invoices. They were actually tabulating the invoices for the contractors and then paying them based on those invoices. So they had to track 41 invoices. So the result was we had to integrate their CRM, their QuickBooks Online, and their merchant accounts to make sure this was all running smoothly and taking away a lot of the manual processes that were causing the problems. So when you have 300 transactions per month and you're tabulating 41 different invoices on those 300 transactions, you can imagine the manual processes that went into it. And so we had to integrate it through technology. Now the result was this. We uncovered $5,000 per month in free cash flow for this business and put $60,000 back into the business owner's processes, in the business owner's pocket through our Cash Flow is King processes. So that is how we worked with a $2 million business. Here's another client that we typically see, and here's a $1 million household. Now, the ones that I'm sharing with you here are very similar. It happens to be 3 different surgeons that have a very similar situation in what we've dealt with over the last few years. And so here's a situation of a $1 million household. Now, that's a nice income, and what you'll find is that this is even harder sometimes to manage the cash flow because these types of folks have W-2 income, they have S-Corp income, they might have what's called K-1 income, and then third is they have some investment income. And so really these folks are working typically 10, 14 hours a day. They're doing surgery, they might be doing some consulting, and they might have some investment properties. And the biggest thing that I see is kind of managing all that. And so, typically the surgeons that we have here are making $800,000 to $1 million in W-2. They typically have what I'd call a side hustle. So they have an S-Corp where they're doing some consulting or some outside work. And then lastly, some investment income. So one of the gentlemen had $200,000 of passive income. But the problem with that passive income, he wasn't realizing the income. It was used to pay down debt. So he was paying taxes on that passive income, but it wasn't coming into his cash flow. And he was wondering where his cash flow is and why he wasn't being able to get ends to meet, so to speak. So that was one. The other one was another surgeon, and he was all right with his cash flow, but just had a huge tax bill because he was taking everyone as a straight K-1, where we could possibly pay that into an S-Corp and maximize his cash flow. Another gentleman was very similar, K-1, straight into his name, and so we wanted to make sure that we were shielding that from liability and some other things, and how do we pay that into an S-Corp. And so really these 3 people maximizing their investment income is because a lot of times what you don't realize is when these people are making $1 million, their kids are going to large and as prestigious schools where it costs $65,000 a year nowadays. And so how do you maximize all that cash flow? So I know one gentleman with the $1 million cash flow, he was a dermatologist. We were able to put about $65,000 back into his cash flow. We're working on putting another $100,000 to $200,000 back in his cash flow by using a captive insurance company. The one surgeon that we worked with, we're looking at some solar credits to offset some of that investment income. We're looking at a couple other strategies that will increase his cash flow. For him, I'm looking at about $60,000 to increase his cash flow. And so ultimately, it's really, where's your cash flow going? How do you maximize it? What strategies can you put in place to maximize it, whether that be in your business or in your household? Because with $1 million, it seems like it might be easy, but also comes bigger problems because you want to invest more into your kids, and that can be very costly. So there are many strategies when you're running a $1 million household that might incorporate a large W-2 a large S Corp, a large K1, or even investment income. And so how do you put all that together to make sure you're maximizing your cash flow and putting more money back in your pocket? And the three examples ultimately I'm given is that typically here we were able to put $5,000 plus back into that household and back into that business. I want to share with you a quick story about some newlyweds that recently came into the office. They were looking to buy a second home, so they're putting their lifestyles together, trying to maximize what they're making, trying to grow into what's coming next, becoming partners in different firms, as well as they were looking at buying a second home. So as they brought in their income sheet to me on a spreadsheet, they had about $300,000 in combined income, and what they broke down was that each of them had about $2,000 to $2,500 per month that they had in variable spending. So it's $5,000. So I looked at them and I said, where's that $60,000 going? And they both looked at me a little bit puzzled. So just understanding that variable spending and that emotional spending, and not that you want to change it, but if you don't understand it, you can't make great decisions. So what we wanted to do for them is, if we can give them a pie chart, if we can put them on the software and share with them exactly where's your fixed expenditures and where your variable spending going every month, because then you can make choices. And I'm not saying you shouldn't keep spending that, do what you want, but how do you make those choices? I know when I was a bachelor, I remember one time I knew that I was wasting some money. I didn't know where my money was going. So I sat down. I remember I was in Napa and I sat down at an outdoor little garden, grabbed out my computer and realized I was spending $5,000 a month traveling, eating out, just on variable spending. Quickly, when I realized that, I started making new decisions. So that $5,000, it's not that you should or shouldn't spend it, but once you know where it's going, you can make a decision. If you don't know where it's going, you're not making a decision, you're making an unconscious decision. And so we want to be driven by conscious thought and conscious decision. And so you can understand where that money's going. For me, I was able to put $60,000 back into my pocket. And ironically, when I did that, it was July 2007. So I put $5,000 back into my pocket every month. And just a short 6 months later, when I was in the corporate world, when the market crashed, they had 40% of the people were let go, which included me. And so luckily, by that time, I had over $60,000 in my savings account because I understood where my variable spending was going. This couple also wanted to buy a second home. And the interesting about the second home is the one thing is they weren't understanding the variable spending of the second home. So they put all the fixed expenditures back, on the spreadsheet. And so I calculated about $6,000 in variable spending every year for that second home. That $6,000, if you weren't planning for it, causes stress and second guessing. So, but when you have that variable spending down on a piece of paper and that emotional spending down on a piece of paper, you can make better decisions. So I want to help you get the results that you want. Either you can go and do the Cash Flow is King process yourself, or you can have us do it. But here are the results that you really need to start thinking about creating, whether you do it for yourself or we do it for you. Is number one, get a hold on that emotional spending. When you know what your emotional spending is, you make better decisions. If you don't know what it is, you won't make great decisions. You'll cut down arguments with your spouse and your partners in business. Same thing with variable spending. You know it's going to happen. You know things are going to happen. So how do you handle variable spending? And it's really with a profit first mentality. How do you put some money aside for variable spending? How do you put some money aside for when the market takes a downturn? And how do you put some money aside so you can take advantage of situations in your business or your personal life when variable situations come about? Maximize your revenue. Revenue cures all. You can use the Cash Flow is King process to maximize your revenue. You can use the Cash Flow is King to maximize your cash flow. And ultimately what we've seen is a 21% or more increase in revenue. And in cash flow, we typically put $5,000 a year or $5,000 a month or more back in your pocket. So the smaller businesses that we deal with, typically we put $5,000 or $6,000 back into their pocket every year. The larger the business, it's $5,000 a month. So it's really where you're at and what that means to you. What does $5,000 a year mean to you? And what does $5,000 a month mean to you, depending on the size of your business? That's what the Cash Flow is King process will do for you. Get started with the Cash Flow is King process. Number one, you're going to get the Cash Flow is King process done for you. Number two, we're going to do monthly accounting. So we'll have everything done for you. Number three, we'll provide reporting. We do this reporting on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly or quarterly basis, whatever is most pertinent to you and your business for your success. Number four, we'll do one-on-one review, again, on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or even quarterly basis, whatever is pertinent for you and your business's success. Number 5, we provide accountability. This is key to get rid of that emotional spending, understand the variable spending, and eliminate and decrease your fixed spending. Number 6 is hit your targets. When you know where you're going and you know where you're at, it's easy to get there and to exceed them. So to get started, give us a call at 312-330-5094 or text us at 312-330-5094, or you can email me at matt@linkbizsolutions.com. The best thing to do is send us 2 times that work for you, and we'll confirm the best one that works for us, and we'll get you scheduled and get you on your way to your Cash Flow is King process.